American ships closer to the Mideast. Terrorists issue new warnings.
The new CIA chief, did he know of the Iran arms deal? Yankee pride at the America's Cup.
And the Krulwich question. Are children living better or worse than their parents? This is the CBS Morning News. Good morning, I'm Forrest Sawyer.
And I'm Faith Daniels. It's Tuesday, February 3rd.
2 U.S. aircraft carrier battle groups are in position in the waters off Lebanon this morning. Aboard 3 of the ships is an elite Marine assault force of 1,900 men. The Pentagon says the ships and men are there to respond to a hostage crisis if they're needed. The show of American muscle has already rattled one terrorist group. That group has issued new death threats against its American hostages. Doug Tennell reports from Damascus.
The kidnappers of 3 Americans and an Indian professor in Beirut claim they have moved their hostages out of the city in anticipation of an American military strike. A communique from the so-called Islamic Jihad for the Liberation of Palestine said the group will execute the 4 men next Monday unless Israel releases 400 Arab prisoners in Israeli jails. The group also released a photograph of American hostage Alan Steen. A marked contrast with the smiling Steen in a photo from the kidnappers released last week. Steen's wife, Virginia, joined the wives of the 3 other hostages at a student rally in Beirut on Monday.
I can't leave my husband here. I'll wait until he comes back.
Israel's Prime Minister Shamir said last night there will be no hostages for prisoners trade. That has raised fears here in the Arab world that the United States might resort to the military option. With American battleships moving ever closer to the shores of Lebanon, the Lebanese are warning America against the use of force.
If the American will intervene, all the Lebanese and the Arab countries will be against the American intervention.
It will bring to Lebanon more disasters, more killings, but no results.
One other danger, there is no longer an independent humanitarian mediator. At the British Embassy in Beirut, officials are still searching for word of hostage negotiator Terry Waite, now missing for 14 days. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Damascus.
The Casey era is over at the CIA. Robert Gates, now the deputy director, has 2 weeks to prepare for Senate confirmation hearings. Gates was nominated to head the agency after William Casey resigned because of ill health. More on the nominee from Chris Kelly in Washington.
Robert Gates, 43, married, the father of 2, joined the CIA 20 years ago. Also served on the White House National Security Council. Since last April, deputy director at CIA, considered well qualified to manage the agency through the Iran-Contra probe.
Mr. Gates, as a number 2 during the whole period of the Iran-Contra affair, certainly has a very good grasp of what the agency was doing, certainly is well positioned to provide the right answers to the Congress and to the special prosecutor.
And there are members of Congress who want to further test Gates's knowledge of the affair.
I think Mr. Gates should be asked a very basic question. Did he know that the CIA was involved in illegally helping Colonel North? And if he did, when did he know about it?
Beyond current controversy, Gates is expected to handle sensitive issues from a different perspective.
I think a career professional will more and more say to a president, sir, that's a mistake. That is a big mistake. You have the right to do it, but you wish you hadn't.
And there are those who hope Gates's nomination signals an end to political appointees at CIA.
I would hope that this is going to be an appointment that will remove the Director of Central Intelligence job from the aura of being something that rotates with changes of administration, but like the job that Judge Webster has done at the FBI, one that we will see run for a long time frame.
Because Gates is considered non-political, the administration could be spared a long, drawn-out confirmation process in Congress. That process begins in 2 weeks. Chris Kelly, CBS News, the Pentagon.
Congress has not formally asked yet, but President Reagan says he is willing to turn over any of his personal handwritten notes that relate to the Iran-Contra affair. The president's willingness to do so appears to have averted a possible legal battle. On Capitol Hill today, Mr. Reagan will be facing his first major defeat from the new Congress. The House is expected to vote to override the president's veto of a $20 billion clean water bill. A Senate override vote is expected in the next few days. Mr. Reagan calls the bill wasteful.
In Manila today, the mandate is so massive that even Corazon Aquino's most bitter opponents are accepting it. Official returns won't be in for days, but unofficially, the yes vote for a new constitution is nearly 80%. Supporters of President Aquino call it a vote of confidence for her. The headlines tell a tale of triumph, but Aquino still faces critics on both the left and the right. This morning, her fired defense minister, Juan Ponce Enrile, told us her troubles are far from over.
Ratification of the Constitution alone will not solve the problem, let alone bring about real stability. It would still remain for the president and her cabinet members and other officials to deal with the problems, especially the fragmentation and restiveness in the military organization.
However, Enrile did tell us that he accepts the verdict of the people.
We are getting the same tune from Wall Street again, the Dow Industrials, this time with a boost from GM, again at a new high. And Ken Prewitt tells us how they marched up there this time. Good morning, sir.
Forrest, good morning. Wall Street's New Year's rally has entered its second month. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, which went up nearly 14% in January, got February off to a strong start with a 21-point advance to a record high of 2179. GM, which had been lagging the market, had another strong day, up 2 3/4 to 77 7/8. General Motors has been rising since Chairman Roger Smith met with institutional investors last week to reassure them about the controversial buyout of H. Ross Perot. AT&T went down another 5/8. It posted a big fourth-quarter loss a few days ago, and the Justice Department now wants to allow the regional Bell operating companies to compete with AT&T in equipment manufacturing, information service, and long-distance service. The American dollar is lower overseas this morning. Gold is up $1 an ounce in London at $402. Silver is up 2 cents at $5.51. Construction spending went down 0.5% in December, a trend that's expected to continue because of a combination of tax reform and overbuilding in much of the country.
Forrest? All right, thanks very much, Ken. And the big news overseas, an emergency debate in the British Parliament today. The government is trying to cool down a crisis over police raids on the BBC. The government told police to find the source of a leak about spy satellite plans, so police carted away 2 truckloads of BBC files and film. As we hear in Richard Wagner's report, that is the big news in Britain this morning.
The special branch raid on the BBC. The Scottish Secretary says the government was not responsible.
When police raided the BBC headquarters in Scotland over the weekend, they seized not only material related to the controversial Zircon spy satellite program, but also parts of 5 other broadcasts in the Secret Society series. The high-handed tactics outraged opponents of Margaret Thatcher's Conservative government.
What is the supreme objective for which the government is prepared to look as though it were running a second-rate police state?
Is the knock on the door in the middle of the night to become part of our society?
The Prime Minister thinks she has a divine right to rule.
But a spokesman for Mrs. Thatcher says the first time the Prime Minister knew anything about the raids was when she saw them on television.
The decision by the police to seek for a search, to apply for a search warrant, and the decision of a judge to grant that search warrant was not initiated by any minister in this government.
The government line is that once the Attorney General decides an investigation is needed, just how that investigation is done is up to the police. The way the police chose to proceed in this case has raised so many questions over civil liberties and freedom of the press that there will be an emergency debate over the matter today in the House of Commons. Richard Wagner, CBS News, London.
In the weather news, western areas of the Northeast are getting colder air today, blowing in across the Great Lakes. Gusts up to 40 miles an hour will hit the eastern shores of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Look out for icy roads and an inch or so of snow. It's now 9 minutes after the hour.
This is the TV8 Morning News, brought to you by Direct Delivery and Distribution. Here's Todd Magel.
Honey in Des Moines and 23 degrees. The man charged with the murder of First in the fire deaths of 2 Ames brothers has pleaded innocent and has been ordered to stand trial next month. Dale Eugene Royer, a former graduate student at Iowa State University, appeared Monday at a brief arraignment in Story County District Court in Nevada. Royer is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree arson in a fire that killed 7-year-old Ravinder Sidhu and his 12-year-old brother Harjit. They were sons of Iowa State professor Deepinder Sidhu. Officials claim Royer broke into the Sidhu home in Ames last December, dumped diesel fuel in the living room rug, and set it on fire. The boys were asleep at the time. 5 farm pesticides have been found in Des Moines' drinking water, prompting the city waterworks to begin testing for the chemicals later this month. Waterworks manager L.D. McMullen says current levels of the pesticides present no health risks. The chemicals are identified as atrazine, furadan, dual, bladex, and lasso. State officials say they will complete a detailed study of the Des Moines water later this month. A battle over seat belts is being waged in the Iowa Senate. Clare Democrat Joe Coleman last week asked fellow opponents of the seatbelt law for 50,000 signatures to help repeal it. Now, Cedar Falls Republican Joy Corning has announced her drive to gather 50,000 signatures from supporters of the seatbelt law. She says although opponents of the law have been outspoken, a large number of Iowans support it. A Creston woman has been charged with passing marijuana to inmates in the Union County Jail. Authorities say 23-year-old Michelle Napier allegedly gave the pot to prisoners on January 22nd. Sheriff John Coulter says an informant told him about the incident. Weather is next.
If you're a shipper or business owner, you know how important a long-distance delivery service can be. You need a carrier that's fast, economical, and dependable. That's what direct delivery and distribution is all about. It's the only delivery service in Des Moines that guarantees overnight delivery by truck to and from these Nebraska cities. There's no weight limit, and our prices are competitive or better than other carrier services. For guaranteed overnight delivery, call Direct Delivery and Distribution. Service is our guarantee.
Well, it looks like we've seen an end to the spring-like weather in the middle of winter. Today's forecast calls for a high temperature of 40 degrees with partly cloudy skies. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low near 20. And tomorrow, real winter weather with a predicted high in the mid-30s. Currently in Des Moines, we have winds out of the north at 13 miles per hour, partly cloudy skies, and 23 degrees. More news and weather in about 10 minutes.
I'm Mariette Hartley.
And I'm not.
Coming up on the morning program, Taxi's Mary Lou Henner, the conflicts couples have over money.
Pianist Horacio Gutierrez, lawyer Jack Ford, and the Baby M surrogate mother trial.
And the new fashion trend, fuller-figured, curvy women.
On the morning program.
Where Rollin Smith predicts Gene Dixon's future.
Liberace, the flamboyant pianist, is said to be near death. Friends and family are gathered at his California home. At age 67, he is said to be suffering from anemia, emphysema, and heart trouble.
A lawyer for Richard Nixon says the former president will try to prevent the scheduled release of his Watergate papers. The National Archives gave notice last week that the papers will become public in May. The lawyer says Mr. Nixon will assert claims of executive privilege and, if necessary, he may sue. Lots of activity on Capitol Hill this week in the Senate. Debate is underway on a highway bill that would give states the option of raising the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit to 65 on interstate highways in rural areas. That measure could run into trouble in the House. The Senate Labor Committee will hear today from Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis on welfare reform. The plan is likely to include a provision that most welfare recipients take part in a work program. And in the House, debate has resumed on hefty pay raises President Reagan has proposed for 3,000 top government workers.
A question a lot of people have been asking lately. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this question in the grocery store. Are baby boomers better off than their parents were? The fellow to give the answer to that question is our economics correspondent, Robert Krulwich, who's been looking into it. Good morning, sir.
At the grocery store and elsewhere, yeah. We are talking about people who are between 24 and 40 years old right around now. There are 78 million of you out there, and Professor Frank Levy of the University of Maryland says, so far, you are not doing as well as your parents did when they were your age. Your salaries aren't rising as fast, inflation's worse, your job's less secure, mostly because the U.S. economy is not growing the way it did in the 50s and the 60s. Now, to be sure, baby boomers have more education and more things than their parents did at the start, but unlike their parents, says Professor Levy, as baby boomers get older, their incomes may not go up and up and up. In fact, they may already be stuck, but they're covering it up by changing their lifestyles to jack up their incomes. For example, here's change number one. Compared to their parents, baby boomers postpone marriage, which of course puts off the cost of starting a family. Change number two. When you marry, unlike your parents, both of you work, so the household has two incomes instead of one. Change number three. Compared to your parents, you postpone your kids, which gives you a little more time to spend money on yourselves for the car and the house. Then number four. You have fewer kids than your parents, which if you think of it is a way of cutting expenses over a lifetime. And finally, number five, you borrow more money than your parents did. Now, using these 5 lifestyle changes, or you could call them strategies, baby boomers have done all right. But even so, says Professor Levy, What happens when you can't borrow any more money? Or you have the second child, or the third child. The wife says, I can't work full-time anymore, and then you're going to lose that extra income. In poll after poll, baby boomers admit in reality they are more pressed financially, they are saving less money, they are worse off on housing than their parents, and Professor Levy suggests if the economy doesn't get back on a high-growth cycle, the American dream that children will do better than their parents from generation to generation will be broken, and the baby boomers will lose. Except for this peculiar development. If you ask baby boomers, not about their house or their savings, but in general, how would you compare your personal economic situation with that of your parents? You better or worse off? Look at this. 63% say they're better off, 28% worse. Now, how can this be? How can the same people who in this case are between 30 and 40 years old say, I'm worse off on housing, worse off on savings, so on, but I'm better in general, in the same survey? It may be that when baby boomers talk about economics, they have more than money in mind. For example, the same survey asked, compared to your parents, who is pursuing a more interesting life? 68% of the boomers say, I'm going for a more interesting life. Or, compared to your parents, who's looking for the more satisfying career? 60% of the baby boomers said, I care more about job satisfaction. Or, compared to your parents, look at this, who's got more freedom? 77% of the baby boomers say, I do. And maybe the most amazing thing of all, when Professor Ralph Whitehead of the University of Massachusetts asked older Americans, over 41, about the baby boomers, he said, compared to yourselves, do you think younger Americans are more or less able to lead a fulfilling life? The older Americans now, by a vote of 43 to 32%, even they said baby boomers are better off. So, is the baby boom generation doing better than its parents? The answer is no and yes. In strictly economic terms, no, they're in trouble. But in some spiritual sense, they're doing better, and almost everybody feels it.
But what happens if the economy does not improve or even stay the same, but begins to take a dip, and in 15 years the baby boomers have a look around, and they're actually worse off in a lot of ways than their parents were?
Well, let's hope that that doesn't happen. The economy could grow in case there's no problem. If that does happen, it seems to me from this data you could have one of two reactions. Either the baby boomers could get angry, guilty about what they can do for their children, irritated, and maybe could have some sort of radical political reaction, or just anger expressed politically. Or maybe the data suggests they'll say, well, I got the house, I got the car, I got the VCR. Why not? I don't mind. Didn't do as good as Daddy, I don't care.
Kick back, put the headphones on, and have a good time. Robert Krulwich, thanks very much.
Coming up on the CBS Morning News, the America's Cup may be the main attraction, but there's plenty more happening down under in Fremantle, Australia. We'll take you there when we come back.
Hello, I'm Dick Terp from Intermart. We are contacting Des Moines area residents regarding the Keyholder program. The merchants' names appearing in this commercial are just a few of the participating businesses. If you have not received your key, call 263-3092 for details. This is not a contest, and there is no cost or obligation. Call now.
For a delicious meal, you just can't find a better place than the Choice All-You-Care-to-Eat Smorgasbord. A bountiful soup and salad bar, large variety of entrees, open flame broiler with barbecued ribs, evenings and Sundays, there's even shish kebabs and royal roast baron of beef. Now the Choice introduces for lunch and dinner Oriental stir-fry shrimp, a delicious blend of shrimp and crisp vegetables stir-fried on the grill. All this under $4 for lunch, under $5 for dinner. Try the Choice All-You-Care-to-Eat Smorgasbord. 1801 22nd Street.
On the next Hour Magazine.
A lot of teenagers are diving in and are really afraid and nervous but are trying to get it over with.
Startling insight from teens as we continue our special series, Reading, Writing, and Birth Control.
I just felt I loved the person. It just happened.
Then it's Songs We'll Never Forget with Mickey Gilley. Traveling tips for your pets.
Are you ready for this? This is a seatbelt for a dog, okay?
And Woman of the Hour, Lily Tomlin, on the next Hour Magazine. Be a part of it all on Hour Magazine, afternoons at 3 on TV8.
There was no America's Cup racing today. The U.S. asked for a day off. Stars and Stripes holds a 3-0 lead over Kookaburra 3 in the best-of-7 series. But while the Australians may lose the Cup, one thing they're winning is money from American tourists. Barry Peterson takes a look.
What do we say to the USA when they step upon our shores?
Western Australia was ready and waiting for all the Yanks headed down under.
One, I love Australia because I can understand the language.
We haven't had a problem getting a beer yet. So.
When the preliminary races started months ago, there were plenty of boats, but few American tourists. Now, as the last races loom and it looks like America will win, the Yanks have come out in force on land and on sea. And, say the Australians, Americans are something to see.
Definitely outrageous check or stripy pants, and usually end up with an equally outrageous shirt to match. And normally they look like pajama pants to us.
America provides its international calling card. Australia provides a touch of itself, like cricket. Australians delight in the fact that few Americans understand it.
Cricket is sort of like watching your wife try on dresses. When you finally find one that everybody likes, everybody claps.
The scores are crazy. There was one yesterday I listened to on the radio, which was 90-5. It was a close game.
And some came with shopping lists from friends and daughters back home.
Oh, she also wants, don't forget the rich sheep herder that isn't sheepish.
French kiss t-shirts. That's what they all want.
There's a virtual navy of rich Americans for this rich man's sport. And there's James and Diane Jesse, who sailed from San Francisco in their smaller boat. It took 355 days.
And these two lovely old ladies were standing on the dock, and they waved, and they said, "Did you come for the cup?" And we said, "Yes." They said, "Did you sail all the way?" And I said, "Yes, we sailed all the way." And this lady said, hollered back at us, "Good on you, good on you."
Another favorite phrase of easygoing Australians, "No worries, mate." But they are worried, as it appears they may lose the America's Cup. And the crew from Stars and Stripes, now ahead 3-0, and only one more race needed to win the Cup, make it clear that for this group of Americans, it's no more Mr. Nice Guy.
When we're finished with you, y'all listen up. We'll have it back, the American Cup. What goes down must come up.
Barry Peterson, CBS News, Fremantle.
America's Cup. There ain't no doubt about it. We won't leave Perth without it. Won't leave Perth without it. Won't leave Perth without it. There ain't no doubt about it. We won't leave Perth.
Special Income Tax Bulletin. Confused about the new tax laws? The new tax laws don't have to break your bank. If you're looking for a guide to the new tax laws, Robert Klein brings you Tax Attack 87. Join Klein as he takes you on an easy-to-understand and humorous tour of the new tax laws.
Straightforward language.
For only $19.95, Tax Attack 87 will help you make dollars and cents of the new tax laws.
Great. Wonderful.
Now available at all Adventureland video stores in Des Moines and Ankeny.
Get up to $1,200 cash back on the hot ones from Pontiac. But you better hurry. They're going fast at your Golden Circle Pontiac dealers.
It's time you did something simple to reduce your risk of heart attack. Have your blood cholesterol level checked. It's the easy way to find out if cholesterol could be building up in your arteries, which could lead to a heart attack or even death. Fortunately, it may not be too late to put time on your side. Find out if you need to reduce your cholesterol level. Have your doctor check it and find out what your number means to you.
When it's cold and rough outside, try something warm and creamy inside. Cream of wheat hot cereal and instant mix and eat. Their smooth texture always lets the flavor come through. 2 great ways to come in from the cold.
I'm not an actor. I'm just a guy, 30 years old, who had a heart attack. I'm okay now, but I want to tell you one thing I learned from my doctor. Medical studies prove that a diet low in fats and cholesterol, with foods like Fleischmann's margarine, can actually help reduce the level of cholesterol already in your body. And that's one way you can help reduce your risk of heart disease. I thought you'd like to know that. Take care.
Fleischmann's margarine. Ask your doctor.
This is the TV8 Morning News, brought to you by M&M Sales. Here's Todd Nagel.
Good morning. Partly cloudy skies and 23 degrees in Des Moines. The state prison at Oakdale, an entry point for all new inmates in Iowa prison system, is jammed beyond capacity, forcing officials to tell county sheriffs not to send more prisoners there. Oakdale Superintendent Russell Rogerson says the prison was so full yesterday, some prisoners had to sleep on spare mattresses in prison offices. Oakdale has a capacity of 300 inmates. That's up to 316 now. Des Moines police say a woman fatally injured on the McVicker Freeway was not the victim of a hit-and-run accident. Investigators say 22-year-old Danita Jones either jumped, fell, or was pushed from a moving vehicle. The accident happened early Sunday morning. Now appears even more John Deere workers will be back on the job in Waterloo. 600 workers laid off before last fall labor's dispute will be recalled. The move is believed to be the first recall since layoffs with Deere began in 1981. The recalled workers should be back on the company's component works and foundry by February 23rd. The American Chamber of Commerce researchers report housing costs in Iowa's two big university towns, Ames and Iowa City, are 31% higher than the national average. Excluding all utilities, an average two-bedroom unfurnished apartment costs $410 in Iowa City, $394 in Ames. A spokesman for the landlords in Iowa City says stiff housing code enforcement has stripped away many of the lower-priced units. Legislative leaders are being threatened with a lawsuit if they continue to block debate over efforts to retain Iowa's liquor monopoly. Monona Republican Representative Roger Halverson says he intends to file an injunction in order to stop the plan for Iowa to get out of the liquor business March 1st. Halverson charges House and Senate leaders won't allow the issue to be debated until it's too late. They deny the charges. Beginning next month, 219 state-owned liquor stores will be up for sale. And a new rubber-tracked farm tractor unveiled by Caterpillar will be built at the company's Davenport plant, even though the facility is scheduled to close in 2 years. The Peoria, Illinois-based company says it will build the Challenger 65 in Davenport, though it would not have an impact on the expected closing there. The new tractor costs $100,000 and causes less soil compaction with its tracks. Weather is next.
When it comes to choosing your office copier, price is not the bottom line. It's service after the sale. That's why M&M Sales Company now offers the security blanket that covers in writing all aspects of copier sales and service, like continuous copier performance, a certified trade-in allowance, maintenance and supply cost, and service response time, all guaranteed. So don't worry. Get that secure feeling with the security blanket, only at M&M Sales Company.
Currently in Des Moines, we have winds out of the north at 13, partly cloudy skies, 23 degrees. More news and weather in about a half hour.
We'll be watching these stories as they develop this Tuesday. U.S. naval forces are gathering near the coast of Lebanon as word is awaited on the fate of the hostages held by Muslim kidnappers. The Wall Street Journal is working through Iranian and diplomatic channels to win the release of reporter Gerald Saib. He's apparently being held by the Iranian government. And in Washington, the House today is expected to vote to override President Reagan's veto of a $20 billion clean water bill.
A last word about a California man whose story will turn you green with envy. His back was just too sore for skiing, so he thought he'd try his luck at gambling in Reno instead. He happened to win the biggest slot machine jackpot in history, nearly $5 million. Terry Williams invested $47 in the $1 machine before lining up 4 sevens.
I never saw the 4-7 come down. It seemed like it just magically appeared, and I knew immediately. And that's when my world kind of stopped.
He plans a trip with his wife. I expect he'll be buying some new ties, and he will donate some of his winnings to help abused children.
Makes me want to forego my ski trip this weekend and hit the slots instead.
I think I'll stay away from the gambling. That's CBS Morning News for this Tuesday, February 3rd. I'm Forrest Sawyer.
And I'm Faith Daniels. Have a great Tuesday.
This is CBS.
special moments shouldn't be missed. Not when heart disease is often preventable. Learn what you